Blessings. So we just tried this a moment ago, and it was not successfully connecting over to YouTube land. So I had to stop and come back again and start over again. Although I think this time we're working. Woohoo! Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. If you were hanging out and waiting for this, I apologize for any issues here, but it looks like we're in like Flynn, although the chat box looks a little interesting because I don't see where the chat is. Interesting times. Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started all the same. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this morning. And let me just make sure. How can we ever be sure of anything? Oh my goodness. Well, welcome and blessings. Thank you so much for joining this morning. I am Tuesday May Thomas, and this is 4D Trinity, where we bridge fourth dimensional consciousness through the unity of mind, body, and emotions, aligning all of those values, those qualities of self with spirit, right? So what I do is I teach people how to live heaven on earth through the practice of self-mastery. And self-mastery is all about us learning how to sustain a conscious perception of love. And it is through that sustaining of the conscious perception of love through our thoughts, our words, our actions, and our deeds that we become at one with love. And through love, bridging through us, through our thoughts, actions, words, and deeds, we become a bridge through which those finer frequencies of love, of light, of joy, of health, of divine perfection can channel through us and be bridged through this physical body here onto the earth plane. And this is heaven on earth. This is heaven on earth realization. Everything that we teach here, everything that we share here is gifted and given as tools to align yourself with greater wisdom, with the higher self, with the light body that is you. The intricate perfection of your divinity is here for you. And what we do is we bridge that. We bring all sorts of parts of the puzzle together for you to be with, for you to consider, and for you to understand as new tools that you can use moving forward in your life. And even some of the tools we can use in the past tense of our life too, to bring healing. And this morning, I am so excited to bring this idea to you. You know, for many years, I've been profoundly intrigued by words and the word, and through my own practice of healing my life, becoming more and more aware of the power of the word. And that brings us into our lessons today, because the power of your word is a part of you understanding how you participate in this world, how you participate and co-create your heaven on earth realization, how you create the correct conditions for you to experience love, right? So we are becoming better. We're becoming more mindful, more conscious of being these co-creators in our life. We're becoming more conscious of how we participate, of the words that we speak into our bodies, into our auric field, and how that in turn affects our reality, everything that surrounds us. So again, thank you so much for joining today. If you are available to drop a line in the comment box, I would be so grateful. So I did have a few technical difficulties this morning hopping on, and it seems on my screen I cannot see any chat box for me to type in. But if there is room for you to type in, maybe I'm missing something, please do drop a line, because I don't know, it's just a little tricky this morning. But such is life, such is life. So again, thank you and welcome. And I want to say a special thank you to all of the new subscribers to this channel. I'm so very grateful. I love this platform. All of my links to my books, my website, and everything is down in the Show More box, or maybe it might not be because I had to run back and make a new print of this for this live stream. So if it's not here yet, I will come back and I'll paste it in down below afterwards. Blessings. I know, right? Total Mercury retrograde vibes over here. But we got this. It's all good. And I'm grateful. Thank you for dropping a line in the comment box, Liz, so that I can see who's here, and just that there is some correspondence here available. So thank you so very much. So these last weeks, we've been doing so much work on really understanding the chakras and understanding more of the energetic schism and capacity of our energy vehicle and our energy bodies, and also understanding the emotional and mental values that go with activating the chakras, that go with activating our higher self. And this is another key that I'm so excited to bring to you today. And it's just this understanding these aspects of metaphysics, of what's going on in the invisible world. And again, through the word today, as I was saying earlier, for many years, I was just so smitten with words. Once I really began to realize that my words have such a powerful currency in my life and in the lives of others, I really started to take things seriously in a different way. Yet it was only about maybe 4 years ago that I ever heard of the term etymology. And I'm just going to loosely define that it is like the study of words and their meaning, where they come from, and then how we can find words within words and switch the letters around within words to create new words. And I find this absolutely fascinating, especially along this route of what we're going to be talking about today with ions, intuition, perception, and knowledge. And if you were watching last week, you know, we got to the end of our presentation and there was more, and I decided to leave it until this week so that we can sort of start fresh, because there's a lot to speak on with regard to what I want to share today, with how it all ties in to you being an atomic being, you being made of atoms, and everything else in this universe being made of atoms. And as we learn how to master those atoms, right, we start to bridge heaven on earth. We start to recognize and realize a very different world that awaits us. And for many of you, you're very aware of this, right? Yet, if this is new, it can be very exciting. I remember for me, when I really started realizing the capacity of where my consciousness went, with what thoughts I was giving my value, my attention to, and how I could shift that, and how that in turn shifted my experience of reality here on this plane, and how I could be at more peace and more attuned to the truth in my heart. We are constantly bombarded by information, right, all around us, and it is up to us to decide how we are going to respond or react, right, receive it and give it back. And equally so, it's up to us then how we respond and receive it and react back, that in turn gives rise to the way our realities show up around us. So this word ion is interesting because last week we were speaking about all of the senses, and how when we collectively, when we start to really hone in and learn how to use our senses to their fullest capacity, what happens is we start to create a cohesive space whereby all of the senses can align and can go beyond their normal boundaries, where we begin to not only just really be able to hear and listen in this 3D, but we begin to gain an insight into being able to hear as if you're reading a sacred text, how you can read between the lines, but you start to be able to hear between the lines. You begin to be able to see with that third eye, with your light sight lit. You begin to see through the veils of this dual plane of the 3D. We begin to activate these senses, and it becomes what is called a sixth sense, whereby we begin to activate and have access to ESP, extrasensory perception, and all the different variables and levels and layers of ourselves. that expand as a multidimensional being beyond just this body. Blessings, Will. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful you were able to hop on this morning. I was wondering about that. So thank you so much for dropping a line in the comment box. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. And the way I'm going to do this is we're going to drop right in to our presentation land. And then we're going to be using the marker board to draw some really fun mandala diagrams. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to go through a little presentation. And funny enough, just like these little issues I had earlier with hopping on this morning, when I went in to go find our presentation, which was the end of the census presentation that we did last week, it was gone. So then I had to scramble. I had to throw it all back together this morning. So I'm very, very grateful. Very, very grateful that I was able to do that. And so first things first, thinking about this word ion, just that word in itself, which I've been geeking out over. And as you know, if you watch this show, I love to go on to Wikipedia or just Google dictionary, type in a word and see what the masses, what the collective agreement is as regards to a definition. With regards to ion, from Wikipedia, it is an atom or molecule that has a non-zero net electrical charge. Non-zero electrical charge, which means its total number of electrons is not equal to its total number of protons. And it goes on. Now, I am not a scientist. I mean, deep inside, I geek out in my internal, alchemy lab. And I think it's fun for us to put that hat on and to allow ourselves to explore different notions. And this is how I came across this notion with regard to what we're going to share today. Just from pretending and being my scientist, my own inner nutty professor, and allowing my intuition and my excitement over what this could all mean and how it could all fit together and what it might present itself as, right? And why we even need to know this stuff in the first place, why it even matters, which we'll get into. And very interesting, Will had said, well, look up shun, right? Look up shun. Because if you'll notice in our title today, so we have ions, intuition, perception, and knowledge. And intuition and perception both end, this is a very important part of this, both end with the shun, T-I-O-N. And T-I-O-N, forming nouns of action, condition, etc., such as completion, relation. So it's a noun, it helps to form nouns of action, nouns of condition, okay? It's all going to come together here. And then we go to intuition, the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. So this brings us back to our studies last week, right? Remember, we were talking about the senses and being so attuned to all the senses that we can go beyond the senses into our sixth sense, which rallies back to our ESP, our intuition, our internal sense of knowing, right? Your intuition is always bringing you. It's attempting to bring you into a place of true knowing. And we understand our intuition both has, and if there's more, let me know in the comment box that you've explored. Yet what I've understood is that through my intuition, it comes as that knowing, as that psychic, if you will, that feeling realization of knowing, right? And as this definition says, this ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. It goes beyond reasoning, right? Intuition is I just know it, I just feel it, I have that feeling. So there can be a very ethereal, metaphysical, spiritual feeling realization with intuition, and it can also be very physical in the gut. In the gut. Now here is a clip from a 4D Trinity from last month where we were talking about intuition, and it's just a minute long. Now the sound may be debatable here, so you might either need to turn it up or turn it down. I'm going to hit play, And it's just a minute long, so let's check this out.
Your intuition is not bound by time and space. Time and space being the governing modalities of thought and of word that align us in a certain continuum here in the 3D, here in the world zone. You're in to I shun. Your intuition is always going to bring you into the now moment where your full power and authority is, where your full presence is, where the truth of you is, into the heart of you. So it is not bound by time and space. It is when we use the thinking mind. And the thinking mind is great, you know, critical thinking, all this stuff, very, very important. Yet, the root of our divine soul compass is always grounded. It's always there in your intuition. Your intuition will never, ever let you down.
Okay, well, I finished by saying it will never, ever let you down. Goes beyond time and space, right? It is the internal knowingness within you. So how turned on are we to intuition? And remember that that word shun is at the end of intuit, and I-O-N, ion, is at the end of shun. So now we're going to go to another video. So please just mind your volume. I don't know how well the volume it translates here. I do have the AC unit on, so we're going to check this out. This dude breaks down in a very short video this notion of ions and atoms. So let's just dig this here. Let's drop right in. If we may, please.
And today we will be studying ions. An ion is a charged particle. It is charged because it contains an unequal number of protons and electrons. So an ion is an atom that has either lost or gained electrons. All atoms have neutral charge because they have an equal amount of protons and electrons.
Okay, this tripped me out. All atoms have
neutral charge.
A neutral charge.
Because they have an equal amount of protons and electrons. But when an atom loses one or more electrons, it becomes a positively charged ion. When an atom gains one or more electrons, it becomes a negatively charged ion. And this type of ions are called anions. Were you paying attention? Answer these two questions and find out. Question number 1. Define an ion.
Define an ion. An ion is a charged particle. Okay, so when I got here and realized that an ion is a charged particle, right? And so, and really, we can listen to this next part that it is charged because it contains an unequal number of protons and electrons. Great, yet we are going to stay with this, that an ion is a charged particle, but also this notion that an atom is actually neutral. Isn't that just profound? To me, it struck me in such an amazing way that I had to create this little presentation today. Okay, we're going to get right into it. So, and I want to make sure you can see here everything. And there's a little delay between what I'm doing here and what's showing on, I was going to say showing on Instagram, showing on YouTube. So I want to make sure that we can see. So, ion. Okay. Let's see. I might need to write it even up higher. Okay, I think we're good. Ion. So now over here, we're going to write perception. Okay, And then down below, we're going to write knowledge. And over here, we're going to write intuition. Now, right away, what struck me that I love about this is that contained within the word ion is the 1 and the 0. And you'll know if you watch these 4D Trinity presentations. Oh, are we cutting off a little bit? Let me see. How about that? You can see it. What you'll know is that we talk about this third dimensional realm that we find ourselves in being the matrix, right? The grid of collective consciousness that makes up this playground, this movie that we share together, is made of the binary system, is made of this dual system of thinking, of feeling. And in the binary system, we are given a 1 and a 0. And we've heard about this, or we've seen ideas about this, maybe posted on social media, that everything here in the matrix is made of 1s and 0s. And ultimately, 1 and 0 speaks to that we have two choices. It speaks to the binary system of yes or no, right and wrong, left and right. Fear and love really is the basis of where we're going with this. Now, as well, if we think about this ion, we're aware that this speaks to either a positively or a negatively charged atom, positive or negatively charged ion, particle, okay? When we think about this realm that we live in that is based in the land of 1s and 0s, of right and wrong, of yes and no, of basically you have two choices. You're either going to live or you're going to die, right? We begin to realize through our practices, through our meditations, our spiritual aspirations and path, that love is the choice, right? That choosing love is ultimately what helps to set us free. That choosing love is ultimately what creates heaven on earth and creates a different realm through which we can experience life. Okay? So we understand now that an ion is a positively or negatively charged particle. But we also understand from our little presentation that an atom in its natural state is not charged. It is actually neutral. And imagine there are neutral atoms within you. And it speaks to that realm where a particle is a particle until you observe it, then it becomes a wave. Everything is what it is. Atoms are what they are until they receive our perception, our direction, our instigation, our definition, our feelings, our energy that bumps into those atoms changes the charge, the polarity from either negative or positive to negative, which then becomes the wave that we ride on our experience in any given moment on any given day. So understanding that there's neutral atoms and then there's positively and negatively charged atoms. And this brings us to perception. And what is perception about? Well, we read a little bit about this last week in our Course in Miracles through the God Phone. And this idea, according to A Course in Miracles, is that perception is what we do here in the world. It is how we navigate the system of this 3D plane. And ultimately, it is through understanding that we have a choice, that we can see and view either love or fear. And that we start to make the choice towards love repetitively over and over and over again, that we begin to, with greater ease, be able to hold that ability to perceive love, no matter what it looks like, no matter what's going down. We see through the veils and we see love, like that post that's been going around of Mr. Rogers, you know, that when there's some kind of a tragedy going on, that his mother would say, look for the helpers, find the helpers, to see through the veils of the burning village, and to look for the good, look for the love in any situation. When we practice correct perception, that's all we're doing, is we're allowing ourselves to train our minds. That's what A Course in Miracles is a mind training, whereby we understand we have a choice. We understand there are these dualities existing within us, but also all around us, and that it is our conscious choice to choose love, to see love over and over and over again, that gives rise to the ability to perceive love. So perception is very important, because through perception, we see with the eyes. We see with the physical eyes in the physical realm. Metaphysically, when we have that third eye turned on, and you know here, if you watch these teachings, that I teach the third eye and the heart chakra are 2 in 1. They're pretty much the same. They're like cousins or sisters or brothers. They reflect each other. And the more that the heart center is opened to love, the more the third eye becomes awakened to love. The more the third eye becomes awakened, the more the heart center opens, that they teeter-totter, they feed, they nourish each other. But ultimately, when that light side is turned on through the third eye, we begin to shift the tipping point from mere love or fear into a realm of knowledge. But let's come back here to perception, because we understand and we see that it has an ion in it. Perception has the word ion in it. The T in perception, right here, is a crossroads of sort. With our perception, with our whatever we see, whatever we view, whatever we feel, whatever we speak about what we see and feel, internally or externally, is our percept, right? Is how we are perceiving, how we are seeing, through what filters, through whatever way that we're viewing. Deciding whether we see something as love or fear, whether we are choosing to be present with a situation, a person, place, or thing through the lens of love or fear, is going to dictate how the ions will spin the atomic structures that create the environment, that create your internal environment as well. We are giving them command at how they should rise in their spin state, either through negatively charged or positively charged. And for the sake of this, again, I am not a scientist, but for the sake of what we're sharing today, we can imagine that the negatively charged, we're just going to say this metaphorically, that the negatively charged ion would be related to fear-based thinking, and that the positively charged ion would be that based in love. The T in perception, the T that comes before the ion, is the crossroads, right? We think about the letter T. And we think about, oh, I'm perceiving this situation. My mind is telling me it looks awful, it looks horrible, I don't see any way out. And we hit the crossroads of the T in perception. Yet, because I practice seeing love and only love, I'm going to practice my spiritual will. And I'm going to hit this crossroads of this T in perception. And I'm going to choose consciously how I'm going to spin those ions within me and all around me in my favor, in a way that will create the correct conditions for peace, for healing, for wellness, for opportunity, for financial abundance, for blessings of all kind. And I think that's just, I don't know, personally, I love this because I feel that it's super, super powerful. And we know that through our perception, again, we are either choosing, right, in the way that we've been taught in the world, we are choosing either good or bad. You're choosing that something is right or wrong. We are saying yes or no. And all of this is polarity driven, right? In a way, we can consider that perception is polarity driven because it gives you two choices. You're either going to choose love or fear. And that's the binary system of the matrix, of the collective consciousness where we live. And that's what we're taught, that that's all there is. Yet, when we learn to master the ion through correct perception, well, that's when we make the quantum leap. We learn to master the ion through our perception. And as we master the ions, and we shift the tipping point. So we imagine this T is the T junction, the crossroads. I see what I'm seeing. There's zero money in my bank account, or that person never called me back about the audition, or that doctor's report looks really, really, really sad or really bad. Yet, I can choose at the T junction of how I'm going to perceive what it is that I'm thinking or what it is presented outside of me. I'm going to flip it metaphysically. I'm going to hold space. I'm going to create the correct conditions within myself to either foster greater fear, greater probability of those fear-based notions coming to pass, or I'm going to co-create the possibilities through which a shift can occur in love and in light. And this is where we come into knowledge. And I love this idea of knowledge because, again, like I said earlier, you know, I help people live heaven on earth through the practice of self-mastery. And self-mastery is the sustained conscious perception of love. And once you have garnered the abilities to sustain a conscious perception of love over and over and over again, no matter what life hits you with, like Gandhi, like, you know, like Martin Luther King, like all of these masters who have been in this world, but who have also bridged heaven on earth and who have spoken, who have shown the alternate, the other way, the trinary, that there is more than just love or fear. We can actually move beyond the polarized notions of what we've been taught about the world into a place of knowing. We can hit this T-junction of how we're going to perceive, of how we're going to intuit, how we're going to drive our intuition, and shift the tipping point, the top of that letter T, or if it's a lowercase t, right? The arm that crosses it, we're going to shift the tipping point in way of love versus fear. And again, that's when we hit knowledge. And I love this because through that sustained conscious perception of love, hitting that tipping point, and thank you, Will, for bringing into our world this week the word of accumulation. We start to accumulate the ability of being able to hold space of that tipping point shifting. We begin to, it becomes easier and easier. I know at the beginning when I was healing my life, choosing love over fear was the true initiation, right? It is for all of us. Learning self-love, learning to heal our lives. The true initiation is, how can I love myself more? How can I love myself? How can I forgive myself? How can I really release the past and come fully into the present moment? Through dematerializing all the constructs within me, the synapses, the memory, the feeling realization of pain, of hurt, of shame, of everything negative, and let me shift this into that place of love over and over again, which in turn sharpens and strengthens our spiritual will. Your spiritual will is like a muscle, and your spiritual will is about you and your ability, your willpower to choose love over and over and over again, no matter what is in front of you. And that's why I was speaking about Gandhi and MLK, because we have these people who have been on this planet. I mean, Christ, right? And I don't mean that as an explanation, but like, you know, with an exclamation mark, or exclamation mark, but it's like the Christ, right? There have been these blueprints given here on this plane through which we can learn, through which we can consider and meditate and receive these divine notions about. So ultimately, this conscious, sustained perception of love brings us into knowledge. And what is in knowledge? The now. And the now is where love lives. The now is where your higher self always resides. The now is where your light body is fully calibrated and activated and just ready and waiting for you to step on in and to master. Knowledge, bringing us into the now moment. The now, and I love this, contains the zero, right? And in the zero, that's the entryway to trinary. So we think about binary and trinary. Binary being the system of ones and zeros through which we have this choice of love or fear in this 3D realm. 4D, right? 4D Trinity, 4D consciousness relates to the heart, to the truth in your heart individually, but our hearts as a collective, the one heart, the one soul, and the truth that that one soul knows. The entryway is granted to all of that wisdom, is granted through you becoming zero, through you dropping the polarity of the ions that make up your atomic body to such a degree that you can walk in the world peacefully, that you can extend that peace to others. You are bridging heaven on earth in that way. Now, interesting though, when we come back up to ion and we think what we were talking about earlier, that we have the 1 and the 0 contained here, isn't it interesting that we use the 1 and the 0 to get to 0, right? Because there's a sense that in order to get to 0, one must become 1. One must have that feeling realization of oneness. Some people call it God. I know that when God calls on the God phone, that's what God says that God is. It's a feeling realization. It's a feeling realization of oneness. It's the experience of oneness. And again, the more that we shift the tipping point through our conscious choice of how we're going to perceive, of how we're going to see and sense things in the world and beyond it multidimensionally, that's what gives rise, right, to mastering those ions, mastering our perception, and coming into a place of knowledge, which is 0. All of the information that you would ever require for your highest good is in the 0. When you activate and access your intuition, again, you have the choice to go 1 or 0, to create an ion of what you're perceiving, of what you're intuiting, to either run the ring of being positively or negatively charged, or of allowing it to be neutral. And it is that neutral, it is that atom that does not have a charge, that is you, once you've reached the tipping point of healing your life to such a degree that you come back to wholeness, that you come back to oneness, which then gives rise to now, which gives rise to 0. No polarity, love and only love, where we go beyond love versus fear into a plane of love and only love. And it is that ability to sustain this. It gives rise to a whole new realm. I mean, you know this. If you've worked on yourself, if you've lived a certain life of pain, right, in whatever regard it was, from your childhood, from recent events, from traumatic life events, we've all had our share. Yet it's our ability to heal, to move through that, to come back to 0, to come back to the now, to come back to knowing our truth. And that is that we are one. Knowledge is where faith lives. And I know I quote him almost every week. There's an evangelistic preacher that I love called Dave Evans. And he says that faith is acting like God is telling the truth. So there's this knowing that requires, like our intuition, that doesn't require any conscious logic or formulas, but it is just a knowing. And that's where we're going to. And when we reach that, suddenly we find ourselves on a different ledge. And it's a different ledge, right, of balancing in this world that we then begin to really start to activate and make these really profound choices. And what are these choices based on? Well, let's look at the L. Love and light. Hope you can see that. down there. But we're on the corner of Love and Light Street, honey. When you move in your realm, in your world, from a place of knowledge, from a place of now, from a place of zero, when you have created the correct conditions within yourself for your Merkaba, for your energy bodies, for the atoms that make you up to whiz in such a way that their spin state is that of more of love and only love than love versus fear, and it could switch at any moment because it can. But when we've shifted the tipping point to such a degree that we can sustain love over and over and over again, that's when we come onto the corner of Love and Light Street or Boulevard. And that's where we make all of our choices from, right? And that's where we do our work from as masters, because ultimately, love and light and the trinary contain infinite possibilities versus making a choice out of love or fear. If the choice is love and only love, it opens up maximal opportunity for that to prevail. And that's what we're learning to do. We're learning how to master our minds, master our mouths, master our time and space, and trust our intuition. And this is really preparation for your Jedi studies. This is Jedi prep stuff here, because it is in learning these fundamental basics. It's one thing to have psychic abilities or powers or ESP, and many of us are healers, and it's such a beautiful thing and such a beautiful gift to use, to share, to experience together. And there's different levels that we may be guided to explore of these teachings in our world. And as we start to go deeper, we might find this resonance of this natural, I don't know, for me, it's like a romance with the invisible realm and with all of the divine beings and entities and teachings and wisdom, because it is a new ledge. And in fact, it's a new edge of living. When you really live from a place of love and light, you affect your healing, your health, your immunity. You affect the ripple effect that travels out from you to your family, your friends, your community. And it is really a profound state of being. I mean, I know if you're watching this, you have that experience. And if you don't have it consistently, perhaps you've had it enough to know that there is truth there. So using our intuition is preparing our Jedi sensibilities, right? And first we calibrate all of the senses, the usual 5 senses, so that we learn how to master the 3D. We learn how to see beyond, feel beyond, touch beyond, hear, listen beyond, sense, smell beyond what is here into the other realms. And of course, being very mindful what we ask for, because it will come in some level. Yet it's accumulating those experiences as a master that gives rise to you preparing your Jedi abilities. So our intuition, so again, here we have the ion. I have to get all over this couch here. So again, we have this crossroads. We have the T, the junction, right? I have an intuition. I have a feeling. I have a premonition. I have a sense about this. But now, how are you going to structure? How are you going to animate the ions? Are you going to stay in the place of love, because we can switch at any moment, or can we allow our intuition to instill fear? We decide. We decide. Your intuition. So I have a note here I want to read. So this is having the capacity to embody all the ESP, though doesn't need to have it turned on all the time. It will pop up when it's there. So this is, yeah, the cool thing about intuition is that I know in these last few weeks of 4DTs, we were talking about being empathic and being super sensitive and being like, I don't want to see everything. I don't want to feel into those atoms. I don't want to, have dead people talking to me all the time, and knowing that we can turn the volume down on these things, knowing that we can ask our higher self to mindfully bring us only that information or only those messages that truly serve our higher self and our higher path. And so what happens though over time is your intuition gets calibrated to such a degree that you don't need to read everything and everyone all the time, unless that's a part of your divine path at any given time and space. But otherwise, we learn that we don't have to have it turned up to 11 all the time. And that as it's required, as needed, your intuition, this is what it does. That's its job, is it pops up through that feeling realization or through that gut, that feeling in your gut. And so are we going to trust it? Because your intuition is linked to the now, is linked to knowledge. The intuition into I, remember that little video we just watched? It is into I. And the I is the one that is that consensus of that higher self, of that one soul that we all are. And in understanding this, and in tapping your intuition from that place, and knowing that as you go within and you really feel, especially when you know you have intuition, yet the answer is unclear, and we know that sometimes it's just not time to have the answer yet. And so we allow, we surrender, we withdraw, and we're just on standby. But when it's time to make a decision and you know your intuition is calibrated, yet there's a lot maybe going on in your mind, how do you navigate that? You go into I, and listen quietly in a still way with reverence. And sometimes it's not always what you want to hear. But the guidance that your intuition will give you will always lead you back to the now, will always lead you through that oneness into the 0 point of true knowledge. And I believe and I teach and I preach that love is the truth. Love is the fabric that makes up all of creation in this universe. And we're learning to be masters of love. Through knowledge, we access trinary, we access one, we access all that is connected whole. And again, the infinite possibilities of you. So we see how the ion connects us to perception and intuition, and that we have the choice. Consciously, we can make a choice of whether to choose to charge atoms positively or negatively, or to allow them to remain in a neutral state, or to bring them back to a neutral state through how we are perceiving whatever it is in front of us or within us, and ultimately hitting that crossroads where the ion resides and deciding, am I going to choose love or fear? And knowing that as we consciously, consistently choose love over fear over and over and over again, we come to the place where we move outside of the, it's either got to be yes or no. There's no maybe. There's no in between. We move into the place where there's an infinite spectrum of not only the 7 colors as we've learned here on this plane, but of the infinite astral and beyond colors. Answers, information, pathways. There's often, I don't know, I feel like we're taught very often, it's one or the other. And as we become spiritually activated and we meditate, go within and we connect to the greater whole, we start to realize that there's actually, the one answer is always love, right? The question is whatever it is, and the answer is always love. And that's what we come back to. And we understand that right perception leads to that love, that knowledge, that knowing that all is well in all of creation. Again, it is that faith, right? Knowledge is beyond logical reasoning. It is that faith, as Dave Evans says, acting like God is telling the truth. What is God telling the truth about? And if you have a knee-jerk reaction to God, you can think of source or your angels or love and light. But it's that everything's going to be okay, honey child. That's where we're going to. And as we accumulate the ability through this tipping point to come back to being atoms, being a being made of atoms with 0 charge, or at least with enough charge in the way of love, that tipping point shifts and we begin to come to knowledge, which in turn gives rise to very clear intuition, very clear knowing as we move along in life. And so it creates this wheel of sorts, I feel, that one feeds the other. So I don't know about you, but I think that is so interesting to me. Your comments are deeply appreciated, but I just totally geeked out on that. And I love this whole notion. I love this whole idea that we are made of atoms, right? Scientifically, this is what we've been told. We are made of atoms. But that we are, because we are that. It's like saying you are made of God, you know? But then you're not God, but you are made of God. It's like, wait a minute, if we're all this one being, we're all made of the same stuff, then of course we are. If we're all made of atoms, including everything in this universe, then of course you can master your atoms. You can master your ions. And right perception, correct perception is mastering the ion. And as we master the ion, through the use of correct perception, we are at once in our Jedi training. We are at once preparing our mind multidimensionally to hold this space. You know, what I teach here as well is that all of the tools that you learn here in the 3D that are spiritually inclined, such as signing yourself into zero, detachment, pulling the plugs from the soles of your feet, bubble of light, placing love here, white wall of fire, all of these things that we talk about here. Once you've learned how to integrate them here on the 3D, your ability to experience them multidimensionally is heightened, is strengthened. And all of these energy tools, all of these notions, as they resonate as truth within you, serve you as you find yourself surfing the multidimensional timelines that make up this universe. And you just might find yourself that those lines bleed, and you'll find yourself more and more becoming attuned and aligned and having more opportunity to connect with and communicate with perhaps beings from different timelines, perhaps versions of yourself from different timelines. In dream time, through healing work that you do or that you share, it can be very profound. And the more that we awaken those chakras, our tube becomes clarified, connected with source, with one, with zero, with the now. Then we become a channel for love and light. We bridge heaven on earth. And I pray and I affirm that this information tickles you, that it inspires you in some way to bring about just a new level of awareness of how you might participate in the choices you make. And really, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. Everything matters. Nothing matters. We're going to do what we do, and it's all good. It's all perfect. Yet if you're on this path of seeking to understand greater ways of embodying your truth and practicing self-love and practicing service of love, being love, sharing love, speaking love, seeing love in your outer world, understanding the way that the metaphysics, the invisible realm of what we are doing, we are inspiring alchemy. We are conducting the atoms that make us up, that make up all of our environment. You are an alchemist. You are a magician. And the more conscious we align with the love and the light, then those creations that are manifest through us are greater love and light. That's how we bridge heaven on earth. Not only for us, it's not just about me having this love and light experience, but it's about accumulating so much that that tipping point shifts. And then, you know, instead of just 30% of the words, the thoughts, the actions I do maybe being infused with love, but 60, 70, 80, 90% of that becomes infused with that neutral, that zero energy. And that's that 0 point that gives rise to the perpetual motion vehicle that you are, to your Merkaba running, activated, clearly. So even if you don't perform the Merkaba meditation, or even think, run my Merkaba universe, it happens by way of you choosing love. And I know we will do a full presentation on the Merkaba. I've said it forever. Soon, 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 soon. Now, on another level, another thing I like to talk about is that your environment is alive and responds to your perception of it. And we know this, or perhaps we don't know it, and perhaps it's news. So before we go on though, I'd love just if there are anyone around, Liz, if you're still here, Will, if you're still here, drop a little line, if you would, about what your feeling is about this whole ion energy. I'd be so grateful. And the God phone is ringing. Blessings. Hello? Ah, hello, God. How are you? God is well. Oh, that's beautiful. Yes, I know. Last week, we were getting into it, and we had to cut it short. We're going to go back in and read a little bit. Okay, from A Course in Miracles. Sounds good. And we're going to see about putting this idea together with the ion and the perception and the knowledge. I love that. Yes. Thank you so much. God says hi, everyone. And God affirms that God is the feeling realization of oneness, the experience of oneness. And I love that because that's totally linking in with everything we're talking about. It's the love and only love. That I am, God says. Okay, well, blessings. And thank you so much. Namaste, dear God. God says namaste. Okay, bye. So we are going to dip in to A Course in Miracles. Last week, the God phone rang and offered that we read a little bit from the book on perception and knowledge. And if you don't know about A Course in Miracles, in my own words, just briefly, it is material channeled that is Christ consciousness. The regurgitation of the Bible or of many teachings in the Bible, but redefined through the lens of Christ consciousness. And again, speaks deeply of the ability and the capacity to choose love over fear. It teaches us, A Course in Miracles is a mind training, teaching us how to do that. Really, how to access our metaphysical nature and how to instruct time and space in such a way that we, in my words, bridge heaven on earth. And that's why I think this book had such a resonance with me when I first started reading it about 4 years ago. So we're going to read today from chapter 3, page 40 in the text, Perception versus Knowledge. We have been emphasizing perception and have said very little about knowledge as yet. This is because perception must be straightened out before you can know anything. So this is a very important point. Perception must be straightened out before you can know anything. According to A Course in Miracles teaching, perception, again, right? Well, what I put onto it is that it's the physical eye's capacity. It's that choosing love or fear. And in the second line, it's saying, perception must be straightened out before you can know anything. So that speaks to your ability to see love. If coming back to our board here, if perception is still has the possibility of being love or fear and can switch at any moment, this must be straightened out, according to A Course in Miracles, before you can know anything. Knowledge, right, on our board here, is that knowing, is that nowing, if you will, that being attuned and aligned with love and only love. To know is to be certain. You see, that's the distinction. To know is to be certain. While we're still in the land of perception, we can flip-flop. We can still go to fear. We can still project. We can still perceive and so receive those gradations in our reality. To know is to be certain. Uncertainty means that you do not know. So as long as you do not know that love is the truth, that love and only love is the truth, you'll be in the land of perception. Knowledge is power because it is certain, and certainty is strength. Again, this speaks to this aspect of faith. People, no matter what spiritual plane they exist on, have you ever met people that have such strong faith? It can move mountains. There is a strength, right? Whether it gives rise to emotional strength, to a mental clarity, a strengthening of the mind, to the strength and the fortitude that you grant yourself on this planet through the words, the thoughts that you think. And it sounds very rudimentary, and it is, yet these are the building blocks. This is everything, folks. And if you get this one, then you're en route to heaven on earth realization. Once you click in to this timeline of realizing how powerful your words, your thoughts are, and that you do give rise and conduct, like a conductor, this orchestra of atoms within you, the sea of atoms all around you. And not that we're here to manipulate or to manifest anything against anyone or thing's will, but we are certainly understanding our own willpower, our spiritual will, and understanding the experience, the value of the experience of communing with love, of being love, of sending love, of receiving love. Perception is temporary, A Course in Miracles says. As an attribute of the belief in space and time, it is subject to either fear or love. Perfect. Perception is temporary. As an attribute of the belief in space and time, it is subject to either fear or love. Space and time. What I teach here is that time is the tip of your tongue. Time are the words that you speak over yourself, over your life, right? How do you speak about time? Or how do the words that you speak over your life give rise to the experience of time? Are you bound to the past? Are you free into the future? When you speak of your life, do you speak about your future in terms of what has happened in the past? Or are you unbinding yourself and setting yourself free? It's a very interesting realm here. Perception is temporary because, why? Because again, there's that T-junction in it. Because it is not knowing. Perception is, well, I could forgive them, or I could just keep holding on to this grudge. Versus, I forgive wholly and completely. Two very different timelines to experience your reality on. I'll continue. Misperceptions produce fear, and true perceptions foster love. Misperceptions produce fear, which seems to be what the greater sphere of this world is about. But I tell you, the more that you live in the land of love and that you bridge heaven on earth, the less those fear-based realities, or those fear-based people, those fear-based notions. I mean, the more you turn your TV off, or if you do watch TV, the less affected you become by the accumulation of all of the fear-based information therein. You are able to see through it, place love there if you need to, and to just see love through it all, to look for the helpers, if you will. So misperceptions produce fear, right? When we are coming from a place of lack, when we are coming from a place of hurt, of pain, of the past, chances are, unless we've trained ourselves otherwise, that the way that we are going to project into the moment now or into the future is going to be based on those fears, which gives rise to misperception. True perceptions foster love, but neither brings certainty, because all perception varies. So again, as we were saying earlier with our chart here, our mandala, and these teachings that we're sharing, that there's an honoring of your ability to perceive. This currency of perception has so much value. And even greater still is the value you place there in your ability to speak, to think, to perceive, to see love over fear, no matter what it looks like. Misperceptions produce fear, and true perceptions foster love, but neither brings certainty, because all perception varies. That is why it is not knowledge, right? That is why perception is not knowledge. True perception is the basis for knowledge. True perception being that training of our mind when we hit that tipping point, that T, am I going to go positive? Am I going to go negative? Am I going to, speak impatiently or negatively towards this person because I'm getting triggered about whatever, or am I just going to remain silent, place love there, remain calm, stay in my power, stay in my mastery? True perception is the basis for knowledge, but knowing is the affirmation of truth and beyond all perceptions. Knowing is the affirmation of truth beyond all perceptions. Knowing is the affirmation of truth beyond all perceptions. Well, this is far out. I mean, if you really take this to heart, that's where we're going. And this is where you experience timeline shifts in your reality. When you have strengthened to such a degree your ability to choose love over fear, your ability to master your ions internally and externally, what happens is you start to have a different experience here on this plane. You shift from world consciousness to heaven on earth realization. And it's like you merge out of the 3D timeline of binary options and into a place of infinite possibilities that are all rooted in love, the trinary, that stem from your 0 point, that stem from you being in the now, stem from you being as one with true knowledge, that love is the truth. And again, Dave Evans, faith, knowledge, faith is acting like God is telling the truth. It is having that unfuckable with ability, that unbending propensity to choose love, to see love, to trust love, and then to let it go and allow love, which I call the quantum organizer, to do the work for you in the world. You choose love and then you let go and you let love rule. You let love manifest for you in the most high ways. I'm so grateful. I really, truly love this platform. I love this community. I feel so blessed to have you here. And again, unfortunately, or fortunately, who knows, we had a few little bumps with the technology this morning, but it's all good. Thank you for those of you who were able to hop on and leave a comment. I know for me on my end, the comment section is not up and running, so I can't communicate with you via that, but I'm grateful for your time and attention today. And as always, I pray and I affirm that this information truly serves your path of self-mastery and self-growth, of sovereignty, so that you are in charge. You are a master of your time and space. Again, I help people live heaven on earth through the practice of self-mastery. And what is self-mastery? It is the sustained, conscious perception of love and being able to really resonate that, really be that, no matter what. That's your Jedi power right there. That's you mastering your ions. I'm so very grateful. I think that's what we have for you today. We're going to sit with it. I feel like it's a lot, but it's also like, it's a nice little nugget to chew on, to process and digest. Thank you, all the new subscribers, everyone for hopping on, for watching this, whether it's right now or later. And again, I am not a scientist. If you have input, if you have information, go to the comment box and leave me some info. Like I know in the past, some of you have left me little video links that have like been little breadcrumbs, and I love that. Or if you are a scientist and you have a different spin on this, I would love to hear your input. All of our minds, on all of our hearts, and all of our words and intentions coming together, help bridging the gap. Right? So we can just have a great experience here of heaven on earth. It's really so, so very simple. I'm going to come back and put links to all of my books down below in the Show More box. I'm very grateful. I am already receiving donations. I have a PayPal link down below that you can donate to this channel, and you've already started donating, and I'm so very, very grateful. You know, I do this, I would be doing this anyway, yet it is nice to create this platform, and this is a training for me. Right? And so I appreciate you being here as the audience, for me to be seen And ultimately, this is a stepping stone that I might do this in a larger and a larger way and share these teachings and this information with more and more groups of people all over the world. And it starts here. And so thank you so much. If you're not subscribed at my website, go to tuesdaymaythomas.com and subscribe. You will receive a free ebook called The Higher Self. And you'll receive my monthly love letter. Again, check out my links. If you're on Instagram, join me there. Check out my books. I'm so very grateful for you. I bless this beautiful day. And I thank you so much for being present. I'm really, truly so very grateful. Namaste, everyone. And thank you so much. Blessings. Blessings, blessings.